Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to Open Licensing and Beyond, how to help creators build on your games. And I am Viditya Valetti. I use he, him pronouns. I am a game designer and design consultant and various other, wear a lot of hats. And I've made a bunch of games, such as I've made games, Bloodbeam Badlands, Space Between Stars, Longsword, and in terms of kind of licensing and stuff like that, I've also made the Goblin Pulls Out a Gun kind of framework and various other systems in general. Who's a person? April.
Hey everybody, I'm April Kit Walsh. I am the designer of Thirsty Sword Lesbians, the first tabletop role-playing game to earn a Nebula Award and multiple Gold Annie winners. I've also written End of the Line and some other things. When I am not doing game design or design consulting, I am a public interest lawyer at a nonprofit fighting for your rights and for free culture. And I wrote a little special open license for the Powered by Lesbians universe, and look forward to talking about that with all of you. Jay, you're up.
Hi everyone. My name is Jay Dragon. I'm the editorial director at Possum Creek Games, and I'm also a game designer. Probably know me from Sleepaway Wander Home or my work on Yoseba's Bed and Breakfast, which came out just a couple days ago. Woo! I am probably best known in this field for the Haith Grant, which was a small grant system for up-and-coming game designers to make projects within the Wanderhome setting, which I'll talk more about later. But a lot of my work is with getting money in smaller creators, which is cool.
Hi everyone, I'm Lex, also known as Titanomachy RPG. I am a game designer as well, and TTRPG writer. I am probably best known for Caltrip Core, which is an open license D4 based system for making your own game in minutes. It's free, it's easy, super easy to use, and actually is the perfect segue into my bit on the panel. I'm going to talk about SRDs, which are system reference documents. The last time we did this panel, I didn't define it. And now I'm going to, because I'm going to improve. All right. A system reference document is basically a document that lays out the rules of your system and shows people how to use it. Also includes licensing information on what the terms of that are. It's essentially a foundation for people to create games on, so they don't have to start from scratch every time. Because a lot of people, it's like, well, do I just invent the D6 again or invent the D20 again? It's like, no, you don't have to do that. There's lots of wonderful open license systems out there, including mine, but many, many more across, which I will name drop later in the presentation because I love doing that. But I would love to make sure that I get all the stuff in time. So if you're here for my part of the talk, you probably are interested in creating your own SRD, or you have one and you want people to use it. Those are kind of the two main areas that I prepared for, because I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Let me say the very first thing, if there's only one thing you take away from my part, is that your system, your game, your thing, your project needs to be eminently usable. Just needs to be super duper usable. If someone can pick it up and use it without you being there to tell them how to use it, that's a really good place to start. And let me tell you a story about how Culture Core started, which was it was a joke on Twitter with me and Maps and Quest and Eli from Mayday Roleplay, just talking about, oh, you could do a D4 based pool system, that'll be fine, and you could call it, like, I don't know, the Caltrip system, ha ha ha. And I took that idea and I was like, oh, let me build on it. And I wrote up the little table and changed the name to Caltrip Core because I liked the alliteration. And I posted a one page of it, like as a joke on Twitter. It was like, oh, this will be fun. And people started using it immediately. And I was like, wait, no, wait. Oh, okay. People are going to use this with or without me. And that's when I decided to support the system. And the thing is, it's just literally a D4 table and some rules on, if you like stats, you'll roll multiple. If you like tokens, it'll show you how to use tokens. And people were running with it. Now, that doesn't have to be the case for your system. but it does need to be really easy to use. The next thing I want to get into, I'm going to make sure that I hit the topics. I made a little outline for y'all because there's a really cool stuff uh, that that we can talk about with SRDs, system reference documents. If you are creating one right now, or you're trying to promote yours, I'm going to come at this a little bit from a marketing perspective, which there's a little term we call the USP, which is the unique selling proposition, and it's what makes your system special, or makes your project or product, whatever it is that you're trying to promote, what makes it stand out above the rest. It doesn't need to be better than everyone else's, because even if it is the best out there, there's really no way you can convince people through like ads and stuff that it is the best until they've played it and stuff. There's like, you could just say it's the best. There's just no way to prove it. But what you can do is pitch your project as a solution to someone's problem. And the thing that I chose for Culture Core was, well, I was a beginner game designer when I made it, and I still am a beginner game designer if I'm honest. And I was like, well, I'm really good at starting things. I have no fear of making a bad thing. So I'm like I was like starting to dabble in my own games after working on 5e. And I was like, hell, let me make a system for other people who are in my position, but maybe won't know where to start exactly. So I had like gathered maybe like the first 3 to 5 months of indie tech that I had read, including Wander Home, which was a big influence on the early game design style. And that's credited along with Spencer Campbell, Hila RPG's Lumen, which is the indie SRD, if you want to ask me. And so my system is built to solve the problem of getting you from having a game idea but not knowing where to start to having a playable game. It might not be particularly complex, it might not be good, but it's playable, and that's a place to start. And that's where you can start growing as a game designer. And I think that's the system accomplishes that in spades, because people have told me that a lot. You should find something that your system does that other systems cannot do, or maybe don't focus on as much. Something that you really love in games that maybe you feel it doesn't get enough attention. So you want to make something that can actually that stands out among, because there's lots of wonderful options out there like Push SRD, Breathless, Motif, Belonging Outside Belonging, Powered by Lesbians, Basic TCG, which is not TTRPG, but it is Viditya's TCG system, which is very easy to use. I literally made a TCG card on my way to the airport to the last panel. Like it was on my phone. I did it. It was so cool. And finally, I kind of want to leave you with be the kind of person that people want to work with. I think people forget about like the human component of it, because a lot of stuff that we do now is like digital marketing, and that's sort of my background and my day job. But when you have a system and nobody's used it yet, you are the only person you're the only salesperson, right? So you just want to get one person to make something on your system. I think that's the goal. When I look something, I was like, I want one person to make a game on my system. Now there's over 230 games on my family of systems. It's like, it's mind blowing. But you start with the first one, right? And you treat those people like people, and you respect and support the people who choose your system. I always tell people I'm honored that they choose my system, because they have a lot of these other options, and I know the weaknesses of Culture Core more than anyone else. I know what the strengths are and weaknesses are, and so I'm always grateful when people take the time and build their really cool game idea on my system. And I think that's how you should treat everyone if you're trying to get people to actually use your thing. It's got to be usable, and they got to feel good when they use it. And whether that means you're nice to people or just providing support in other ways, like other additional open licenses and other like content and like creators kits, like the Hila RPGs. Lumen has a great creators kit for that. And yeah, that's what I would love to leave you with. Eminently usable, USP, be cool. And then I'm going to pass it over to Jay.
Hey, thank you, Lex. That was really good. So what I wanted to talk a bit about is I'm here to talk about community, basically, and what it means to build up a community. I think when people think about third-party content in the tabletop space, the framework that we are always forced to compare our work towards is Dungeons and Dragons. Because the DMs Guild is kind of the premier framework for how people can sell their third-party designs, right? Like part of the way in which Dungeons and Dragons cultivates a creative community, you have to understand, is from the fact that it's created an environment where people can sell their games and Dungeons and Dragons gets a cut, but the boost of the platform and the boost of the user base supposedly balances that out. Game design is about fostering community building fundamentally, because when you have 5 people sitting down to play your game, that's a micro community, right? If each of them go and find another 5 people and they play your game, that is just a bit of a community, right? Like if you imagine even a tabletop game that's maybe not gotten a ton of traction, right? Like let's say, you've heard that it's been played a dozen times. Each of those times has been with 4 to 5 people, and that alone is like more than 100 people. When you are building your game and building it out, and especially thinking about how to cultivate it into the future, you're thinking about community. When you want to build, there's a lot of different ways to kind of attract that community, and part of that is going to be on the merits of your game. But it's hard to tell people like you should make a thing for this instead of making a thing for something else, right? And part of it is the love of the thing, but also the love of the community. When people make something for, Monster Hearts, which to me was when I was coming in, like one of those indie games that had a lot of kind of creative energy around it, a lot of these, fan playbooks, where that energy was coming from was from a desire to engage with other Monster Hearts players. Possum Creek Games, when in 2020, when we did Wander Home, created something called the Haith Grant, which was really kind of an experimental thing that I wasn't sure of, but I'm really proud of how it turned out, where we set aside about $12,000 of the Kickstarter to give to small creators. So they sent in an application, they laid out what they needed the money for, and like who they're hiring an editor, they're hiring an artist, they're doing layout, right? They're paying themselves, right? This is what they need the money for. And we just, picked out the projects that were in good, that were like excited or involved, or there's some people who clearly submitted something that wasn't for Wander Home, but of the ones that were for Wander Home, we pulled them in, we got them going. And there's a lot of people who got their start like in trying out what it means to run a Kickstarter from this micro project, right? That they had funds and they had people that they were working with, and they weren't on a deadline, and they didn't have an audience breathing down their throat, which meant it was kind of a more forgiving atmosphere than a Kickstarter. Not all the Haith Camp projects were done. We didn't put an expectation on finishing your project. So there are a number of people who just didn't finish their project, and that's fine. We weren't doing that for this. Like that wasn't the point. Because by creating an environment where people were building into Wander Home, we were creating a creative community. We're investing in our creative community. No indie tabletop game can be like the DM's Guild, right? None of us can say like, oh, here's the special platform that we host where you can sell your games and you're guaranteed to have an audience, right? None of us have that reach. But what we do have are other forms of resources, other mechanisms for uplifting people. And if you're thinking about uplifting people and investing into your community, right? Be that either with, if you're running a large Kickstarter, maybe that is a cash infusion, right? That's the lucky thing about Kickstarters. If you're not operating in that space, maybe it's a different kind of investment. Maybe it's an investment of your time, which is a resource. Maybe it's an investment of your social capital. Maybe it's an investment of like your care. Whatever the shape of it may be, putting that investment in can cultivate the community, can lay down the seeds to grow into something really impressive. I think like as game designers, it can be daunting because I think a game designer is frequently, we're either very social or very introverted. It's kind of in our nature. But I think that it can be scary to be like, oh, I have the responsibility of a community now. When I was just making these games for fun, and now I'm taking care of all these people. But making a game is about caring for people. It is about cultivating even a small community at the table, right? A game, the point of all the work we're doing as game designers is to invite and involve community. And I think that when you think about what it means to grow that community, it's the same thing as what is it like to care for the players at the table? What is it like to care for the people who play your game? What is it like to give them the tools to build on your stuff, to iterate, to expand, to make something really new and cool? Yeah, thank you. Those are my takes on grants and such. I'm not sure who the next person is. Is April? Yes, go for it. All you. Or is yours?
Thanks. Super interesting. I love doing this panel. This is great. So we have arrived at the open licensing part of the panel. I am a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer, and I'm not giving legal advice. But nonetheless, hopefully this is going to be interesting and helpful. I think, like Jay was just saying, this is a really collaborative medium. So it's collaborative in terms of building the community. It's also collaborative in terms of the kinds of stories that we build. And it's collaborative in terms of the language of game design and the tools that we all develop and all of the resources that Lex was talking about that go into an SRD. And unfortunately, copyright law. So the reason that we have to worry about open licensing is because a lot of the creativity, particularly community-based and collaborative creativity, that's really natural for humans to do, but is fundamental to the RPG space, is not necessarily happening along the lines that are dictated by copyright law. And one way that we can try to make our games more welcoming, more inviting, and give people confidence that there's going to be an ongoing ability for them to create is to signal that and legally support it by applying an open license to our works. So I'm going to start with the 30-second version of copyright and RPGs. Under US copyright law, ideas and methods and systems aren't copyrightable at all. They're just free to use. There's a big asterisk on the word system in a space full of game designers, because that's not necessarily, the copyright meaning isn't necessarily identical with the RPG meaning. In particular, when you express those ideas and systems by putting them to words, and sometimes the way that they're arranged are places that copyright can attach. And since 1976, you don't have to do anything for copyright law to apply to your work. You don't have to register it. Just right away, there's a copyright in it, and people have to worry about if they're going to build on it or adapt it or something, are they going to do it in a way that's going to contradict copyright law? And either, you're going to come after them, or someone is going to inherit your rights who's going to be less excited about sort of the medium or the message, and is going to cause them problems down the line. So not every expression is copyrightable, but the distinctions would take more than 30 seconds to explain, and this panel isn't about that. I have a blog post on the EFF blog talking about it. Check that out if you want to know more about that. But the cool thing about licenses is you don't have to care. If you're acting pursuant to the license, you have permission from the copyright owner. So basically, when I apply a license to my work, even if it would otherwise be copyright infringement, you want to like grab a verbatim description of like an illustration of the rules or something, then you get to do that as long as you comply with the license. And the goals here are both to give clarity and confidence to subsequent users that they're going to be able to add to the usefulness and fun and visibility and community around your game. So that's all great stuff, and you don't want the law to get in the way of it. I'm going to now pitch two good options for open licenses that I think RPG publishers should think about. I'm going to preview a third one, and then I'm going to talk shit about the OGL, which is the old Wizards of the Coast license that was applied to D&D in the year 2000. I'm also going to say why I don't recommend you roll your own license. So the two that I'm going to sort of pitch you on it's not news. These are licenses that are applied to RPGs already. This isn't the big reveal. But they're both Creative Commons licenses. And Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization that has worked since the early 2000s to help address the exact same legal barriers that I was just talking about, where the way we want to create art and music and stories isn't consistent with the restrictions that copyright law applies when it assigns sort of really brutal rights to control what other people say and extract huge amounts of money from them to authors who are deemed to have written something original under the standards of copyright law. And so they have put in so many hours of like very smart legal thinking into making these things actually serve a community goal and also effectively serve that community goal. And that's really different than when you have a sort of, acceptable use policy written by a single company to advance the corporate interests of that company, which is the way I think about the OGL. Here, good people, smart people with good goals. So one that's used pretty commonly in RPGs is just the CC BY license, CC attribution license, where all you have to do is credit the original author, and you're free to use the work. And the advantages of this is that it gives, from the perspective of the person offering the work, it gives you the broadest possible reach and adoption because it's such a light lift, while still getting pointers back to you as the author. And the downside is that the person using it has no other obligations. They don't have to share back. They can just be fully proprietary, having sort of ingested some of the material that you provided. And I think it's up to each person to decide sort of what you think the risk of that is versus the risk of not being noticed or not getting your work out there. There are a lot of systems, like Fate uses this system. A lot of really well-known systems are CC BY. I don't know a horror story where it's gotten completely ingested and just something proprietary has happened in a way that like interferes with the enjoyment of the game as a whole. So it's sort of it's a hypothetical kind of risk, but it is what pushes some people to use instead the share alike excuse me, the share alike license. So you might see CC BY SA. The SA stands for share alike. And so there, it requires attribution, and then it also requires that the subsequent user assign the same license. They offer the same license for what they then have created. And I will say I did a little hack to it for Powered by Lesbians, because people were expressing worry that in our medium, the work that is adapted isn't just the rules text, it's a whole book, and it's got art in it, and you might not own the art. It might be just licensed from someone. You can't open license that. You don't have the right to. And I think it's arguable whether that obligation is there under the share alike license, but I don't want it to be arguable. I want it to be ironclad. I don't want you to have to hire a lawyer. I don't want, when I go bankrupt and Disney buys the rights to TSL and bullies Powered by Lesbians creators, I don't want them to have a leg to stand on. So I wrote a little thing that says you're good as long as you open license the text in your thing. Don't worry about it. As long as what you did is an RPG book, all you need to open license is the text. And I think the sort of third option that I previewed, I've had some conversations with the people who are coming out of the SRD snafu or the OGL snafu. A bunch of publishers who previously relied on that were talking about coming up with a new license that they're calling the ORC, the Open Role Playing Community License. And I think it might wind up working like that too. I think they're interested in sort of defining a distinction between product identity and rules, which is something that the OGL did. I think it's great if people want to write a novel about like my setting or whatever and then share it. I'm really excited about that. So that's not a distinction that I want to restrict people on, but that might be how it pans out. Don't know yet. It's been a while since we talked, but I think that's the last direction that I saw it heading. I don't have as much time as I would like to make fun of the GPL, but basically, I think I want to use it as sort of a cautionary tale around rolling your own, because there was a lot of sort of amateur legal analysis around the OGL when Wizards said that they were deauthorizing it, and in particular, you'd see they said it would be perpetual, and then like every copyright lawyer is like, that's totally different from irrevocable, and everyone who's not a copyright lawyer is like, how dare they? Like, that's really deceptive. And that's the kind of thing that having a team of tons of lawyers, academics, and other interested people work on the Creative Commons licenses has hopefully avoided. I'm going to knock on wood. But it's a downside to the Creative Commons license that you look at it and there are so many words, but like they're kind of there for a reason, and they have put a lot of work into making the human readable version. So I think it might not. I don't really think it's perfect, because that sort of wall of legal text can be an obstacle to sort of confidence. But they're pretty good tools. There might be a little tweak along the lines of Powered by Lesbians, which you can see at poweredbylesbians.com, to make it like really match our medium. But I think they're a great place to start. I will cut it there because I think I've used my time, and pass it along to Vidya.
Hello. I was really happy to go. I wanted to go last today because I wanted to hear whatever all of these wonderful panelists, my co-panelists, talk about, because my section is last time we did this, it was like I talked a lot about game jams because I love game jams. And in kind of preparation for this, I ran a game jam. I ran a game jam this month, like from the end of February to yesterday. And it was for a new game that I've released called Longsword, which I really liked. And I designed Longsword in part for people to create for it. It had been I think this is the first game I've really made where I was like, this isn't like a system I want people to build off of. It's a game that I want people to make content for, ideally. And I looked a lot at like OSR kind of games and how they worked. The game jam did not go great, at least for my own metric. I would say in the like kind of analytical post-mortem side, it was not that successful of a game jam. That's not to say those who submitted games or even people who are working on it or any of that, like the community didn't do anything wrong. It was a really good way for me to think about what I did wrong about running a game jam and what I could do better, what worked and what didn't. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. It starts with, one, the OGL, like we April brought that up. The OGL hit, and that genuinely scared me. Like there was just something like really not like I'm going to lose whatever 5e work I did or whatever, but there was like a really there was this real conversation about being scared to work on make your own stuff, or the like legal precautions of sharing work. That kind of set me in a weird spiral of like, what do I do? And so I did what April mentioned before, which was like I wanted to make this as easy as possible. I was like, you know what? Like there's a lot of legal jargon being thrown around recently. Let's do just credit me. And you can make whatever you want for Longsword. And that was really nice. I think I felt like there was no questions people needed to ask. I made a little logo and people were like, yeah, I want to slap this on my thing. Perfect. Also what worked is all the entries that did make it. So it was a game jam that ran for a month. I got about 6 entries. No, 8 entries, but 2 of them are mine. 2 of them is Longsword, and the other one is a thing that I made. Each of them hit exactly what I wanted out of my game, and running the game jam was like, and like the expectations of the game jam was like, make content for this game, do what you want, and that was really great to see. Like every entry was like an exploration of something I wanted, like an understanding of the types of stories I wanted people to make for this game, interesting new sections and game modes or whatever that fit perfectly within the framework. And I think that helped with, for the advice to give for people who want to make games to run game jams for, or these things is like, I built structure into the system that's really easy and customizable. Random tables is great. Somebody made a submission that was just a bunch of random tables, and that like felt good, and it's like cool, like it's approachable to make stuff for this game. And the game jam explicitly is like, have fun, like kind of do what you want with it. This encouragement to turn longsword into what you want to do. And I think that to me is kind of where I was like, it worked. That's what worked. What didn't work was, and this keeps coming up, and this is a big advice for people who want to run game jams. Game jams are work. Like, it is a thing that you need to keep up. And I ran a game jam for a month, and a lot of my own personal life, mental health, and just work, like actual job stuff, like kept piling up, and I just didn't have time. I had a lot of ideas. I wanted to do threads on Twitter about inspirations, or even just jamming ideas out loud. I wanted to do a greater submission that I had even talked about. It's a draft. I just never got it done. So my life got in the way, and I kind of wasn't promoting my game jam. I wasn't, like I was interacting with people who submitted stuff, but I didn't, I wasn't platforming them as much as I think I should have. And so, like if you want to run a game jam, just know that that's kind of what you're going to be doing. You need to be a community leader. And that kind of goes into what Jay was talking about with like, your game, as a game designer, you make communities, and it's a part of what it is. And I just like kind of wasn't prepared for that, or not even that, but like life gets in the way. So kind of understand that, especially if you're running one on your own, or, that's a thing that you got to worry about. Another thing for me that I think I didn't do well is I didn't have like, because it was just me kind of talking on Twitter, like I didn't have a space, like a community space. I know a lot of people who make really cool games that like have Discord servers, or some space where people can talk about it, where like, even if you're not tweeting about it, or people aren't, it's not finding people on timelines. You can chat, it's a little easier. And that's something that worked well with basic TCG, because there was a server, and people could talk about it, come in, we can chat, share ideas. The conversation had a place to live, rather than just kind of this amorphous thing. I think you don't need to manage a server if you are on top of it on like an open platform, but it's something that I think I didn't do great. Ultimately, this is kind of like, I wasn't entirely sure. Like, I don't think I have a greater advice for this. Like, I'm going to try again. I love game jams. I love making games. And I love the openness of games as a community, as a thing that like, I made something and I want to see what people make out of it. And this conversation about getting people to make content for your games, or make things based off of your stuff. Like the OGL conversation scared me also, because I realized that I felt like I was losing the kind of art zine lunchtime call, like this, like, hey, I want to make something. Let's make something together. Let's just kind of have some fun. And like the safety net of that legal thing that used to feel easy and approachable suddenly became scary, and like, well, is there something wrong? And at least I felt that energy shift. And so like it's something to look out for. And I, I wish I had more kind of concrete advice and solutions, but I thought sharing kind of a postmortem about like what happened after a game jam I ran, especially in this era, and what I learned, is helpful for people. I will say real quick before I go, I kind of forgot that I ran another game jam prior to this last year, literally right after our panel, basically last week, was which was like, if you count submissions as success, it was more successful than Longsword. It was a birthday jam I just ran for the month of October. My birthday's in October, and I was like, make a game based off of whatever the fuck you want that either I would like, that you just think I would like, or off of one of my games. If you want to hack it, content, whatever, it's a game jam for me. And that had a lot more conversation around it, even though Longsword as a game had a lot more success. I think me as like a subject, like this fun like idea, this and like I got a lot more friends to participate because they were like, yeah, like I want to make something for you. And other people who I don't really talk to, but like my games, like, I don't know them personally, but they like reached out to me, and I had a lot more people talk to me and like my DMs to be like, I'm thinking about this. Like, what do you like? Is this what you're looking for? Or like, can I ask you a question about my game? And that was something really fun. And I think I want to chase that and maybe like, instead of kind of the road I took with Longsword and pull game jams as a way to create community of people who want to make, rather than like people who want to make for this, so if we do this panel again, I will update everybody about my game jam journey. That's what I got.
Vidya, do you think like I'm just curious. I wondered if you think that like it was that the appeal of the birthday jam was like in part because like you are I guess you did kind of say that you are like a stronger through line than any one particular game, but also like that it like, do you think that there's a quality about having it be about you instead of being about a game that enabled people to be like to access more of a sense of community? Like, do you think they found more community in the fact that it was like they're working together on your birthday party instead of working on a game project? I don't know.
I really think so. I think there was a the playfulness of community, right? Like it feels, even though like all the games were kind of made in a vacuum, right? But it was still like, I want to like the point of like people wanted to talk to me more about what they were making really stood out. And I think that felt like, the way you said, like, it's like a birthday party, right? Like everyone's kind of coming in and it's like, this is what I like, let's open your presents throughout the month. And that I think felt nice and is a thing to chase.
I just
Oh no, go for it.
I just wanted to say, like, what if I'm thinking about how I felt when you were describing the Longsword game jam, and then when you described the birthday jam, like when you described it, I was like, oh, and I like I had a joyful moment, like, oh, that's so fun. And Longsword's like, oh, cool, I'll go check that out, and then maybe I'll make something for it. If I like, it's like, oh, I have to go read a game, or hey, my friend is doing this really wacky idea, and I'll make a D100 table for if Viditya does a wild magic surge. It's never gonna happen, but one of these days you're gonna want that table. Something. It's just like, how does each idea make you feel? And that's just something that I wanted to pop in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love a wild magic table for myself. That's so good.
I feel like so much. I don't know. So much of my own personal goals are like creating a community of creators. Like that's kind of been my big kind of priority for like at least a year. Is like, how can I create a space where creative people can like talk to each other about game ideas, and like work on things together, especially as like Twitter implodes and like tabletop as a space kind of continues to fracture, and like, I don't know, it continues along the same paths it always has. It's like, okay, what can I actually do to build like islands of stability and creativity? And the jam you described is the first time in a while where I've been like, oh, that would be a good way to do that. And there's other jams too, like the Trans Rage jam that that some folks, that like Sasha and some other folks have been involved in, that like has done a really good job of like building a creative community that I think is really cool.
And I think like something with like the greater conversation about licensing and stuff like that is like the more options people have that feel safe to play with, like these game jams that are broader, that are more topic based than game based or system based, like will feel more fun. Like the conversation then comes in like, oh, I want to make a game that's about this. Does anybody know of like a system that I can easily push that for? So it's more about like the fun of the creation than the like, or like the fun of the challenge of like a topic rather than the can I make something unique out of a mechanic or something, right? It's a different brain that maybe sparks more imagination than just like kind of Lex, where you're like, that's a cool game, like let's see if something pops, right? Like let's see if I have an idea rather than I have an idea, you know?
Yeah.
So,
April.
yeah, Math Class Warfare asks, any advice for writing the necessary legal text in a less unreadable or legalese way? And I'm going to start with my unhelpful, snarky answer, which is repeal 95% of copyright law, and then it would be really simple because then you wouldn't need a lawyer to make culture together. Done. The less snarky, but actually equally unhelpful answer is no, because like they're really smart. Like I am involved. If they did another round of CC licenses, like I would be involved in in feedback on it. And I think it's really valuable that they are an organization that has a nonprofit mission of advancing the common collective creativity. So when they publish the human readable summary of the licenses, there's more reason to trust them as opposed to, when Wizards of the Coast says, here's the nice sounding marketing text about what's going to happen. And you can just read that and not read the legal document that you're agreeing to. Like, no, you would never do that. Well, you would, but you shouldn't. And so I think they do a ton of work to make it intelligible. And I also really valued the community where people were raising concerns. Like it is a one size fits all license for anything copyrighted. It's designed basically for stuff that's not code because open source and free software licenses are a whole other universe of options. So it's designed to be one sort of legal regime that can govern music and books and everything. And I think there's a role for people who are embedded in a particular medium to give it some thought, make sure it works for our medium, and apply any tweaks that are necessary. But like they don't get mad about that either. They have this CC Plus program that I literally had never heard of, but it's I think it's used for software and software documentation where something is offered under Creative Commons, but then some additional rights are granted. And that's the way the Powered by Lesbians license is structured. You can just take a straight CC by share alike license and rely on that. But then also, if you have concerns about that, here's a little tweak that should allay your concerns about the issue of art in RPG textbooks.
I wanted to really quickly answer a question from Lynette, who asked about a Google Sheets version of Wanderhome that has been helpful for them, and they wanted to know if I was okay with it existing and being used as an aid. I don't know this sheet. I want to say though that an author's approval of whether or not a thing existing shouldn't be your concern about whether or not you're using it. Wanderhome gets pirated, for example. And I'm really not super comfortable like coming up on stage and being like, I'm pro my game being pirated. However, as a general principle, I think piracy is good. And I think that regardless of whether or not, like, the Wanderhome third-party license says don't take the text of the game and recreate it, which, like, word for word, like, don't plagiarize effectively. And if that's what this thing is doing, that's against the Wanderhome third-party license. But that shouldn't stop you from using it. And also, if I don't know about it, then I can't. There's nothing I can have any thoughts on about it. So I'm going to assume this thing is fine. And also, furthermore, encourage you in general that piracy is good. Getting access to the things you need when you can't access them otherwise is really good. And that creators, like any creator who has any kind of platform with their games, expects a certain number of them to be pirated, and that I got my start with piracy, and that like we are talking about a lot of legal terms and like legal things here. And I do want to note that the extra legal world like is not something that I want to like deeply touch on, but is a thing that I want to acknowledge as like a moral good in this world. That it's if you pirate your games to read about them, or you access them in a way that's useful for you, even if like the creator has a little thing on their website that's like, don't put the game in that way. I don't think there's I think you were doing a moral service and an act of good.
A thing I maybe shouldn't say out loud too, but it's like, you know, in that vein, it's like use the trove until it gets taken down kind of thing, right? Like fucking use it. It's like the closest we have to a library, or it's the closest we had to a library, right?
I one of the many times that I laughed at the Get Woke Go Broke crowd was when they were like, who has a PDF of Thirsty Sword Lesbians? Let's pirate it. I'm like, there are over 1,500 community copies. You can just claim.
We're gonna get you. We're gonna steal your game and then read it, and we're gonna think about our gender while we do it.
Yes, exactly, Jay. Exactly. Like, oh no.
There was a real moment where I was like, I like looked up my games on like whatever Trove Archive or whatever the alternate one, and I didn't see any of mine, and I like felt disappointed. I was like, damn it.
I felt a great deal of pride when I found like some 4chan threads being like, anyone got Wanderhome? Anyone got Wanderhome lying around? I'm like, yeah, that's right, for sure.
Y'all are braver than me searching your own stuff on the internet.
Oh, dude, all the time.
I have an SEO friendly game name and a lot of paranoia.
My name is very helpful for SEO. That's why I put my name on everything, because it's very easy to search.
I get mixed up with the Lego Ninjago toy, which, you know, for modern.
Oh, there's a dragon.
Yeah, J Blue Dragon is the Lego Ninjago toy. We have a couple more questions and not a lot of time. Do we want to speed run them and introduce our like?
We can also there's in the Discord we can talk about questions afterwards. So that's the big bad con thing.
That's a good idea. So maybe we need to do our outros and then move to the Discord. And
should we do reverse order?
You can. I'll go first, and then we can popcorn. Take care, everyone. You can find me at patreon.com/Possum Creek or on the Possum Creek Games website, or wherever I happen to be lying around. Please do reach out, say hi if you got any questions. Let me know. Love to chat about this stuff. Pleasure to meet all of you.
I'm Lex, also known as Titanomic RPG. I'm the creator of Caltrip Core, which you could use today to become a game designer before you go to sleep tonight. The record is 15 minutes to have created a game. Can you beat it? Maybe. Let me know. Tag me on Twitter. I'm also Dachi Shijuk on the Etherlog podcast. So if you're interested in some actual play and like the sound of my voice, go check that out. We use a lot of stuff that I designed. I also would love to have you build on Caltrip Core, but and it's in the Big Bad Con online bundle. But it's also free, so you could just go get it. If for something like that, the bundle price is currently inaccessible to you, which is totally fine. Just go to titanrpg.com. All my stuff is there. Popcorn, Viditya.
Hey everybody, you can find me online everywhere at Viditya Valetti. Specifically, you can find my games at vidityavaletti.itch.io. That's kind of it. Go check out my stuff and see if you want to make anything for the next start building ideas for my next birthday jam. And also, I'm going to take up that challenge. I think I can make a game in 10 minutes. Let's see if I can push that down.
Record the whole thing. I want that screen recorded.
Oh, I'm going to do the speedrunner.
Yeah, I want the splits.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. I am April Kit Walsh. You can find me in all my links on Twitter, as long as it exists, at Gay Spaceship GMS. Gay Spaceship Games, but there aren't enough characters. Prilkit.itch.io. I'm on the Fediverse at APRRRL at lesbi.in. And I mean, that's the place where I'll be permanent. It's not centralized and it's less destructible. So get over there. You can build on Thirsty Sword Lesbians using the Powered by Lesbians license. You can build on the Powered by Lesbians license by applying it to whatever you feel like, and it's a share-alike thing tweaked to work for RPG books. So please enjoy it. Let me know if you use it, because that excites me. I like it, but not for any permission-seeking reasons. I actually really like it when people just do cool stuff without checking, because then I don't have that problem that Jay had, where someone asked them if they could do something cool. So yeah, check us all out. Thank you everybody for joining the panel. Thank you to our lovely speakers. Thank you to our lovely audience and those who ask questions. We will see you in the Discord, and thank you for the behind-the-scenes friends making it all work.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.